Hi, I'm Lynn Collins Mailly, co-founder of the Lily Mae Francis Foundation. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in our interview on personal journeys in honor of Pride Month. And if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hey, my name is Eris. I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I am 38, almost 39 years old, and my pronouns are she and they.
Okay, let's just jump right into the questions, okay?
Okay.
How do you identify?
So I identify as a Black, non-binary, bisexual, disabled Black woman, which
Okay.
is a whole mouthful, but it is all of my identities, and I feel like there's no sense in lessening any one of them, but I always lead with Black because Blackness is at the foundation of everything that I am.
Okay. All right. And at what age did you discover that?
Ooh, that's complicated. I think that uh when I look back, I think it was a journey, it kind of like peeling the layers back.
Mhm.
But some of the one of the key things I remember watching the Love Jones movie and looking at the two main characters, Darius Love Hall and um, Nina. Can't remember Nina's last name right now, but I just couldn't remember like who I liked more.
Mm,
And at first, I thought it was just like, oh, I liked them both, but as I evolved into understanding my non-binary identity, I wanted to be them both. I appreciated both the masculinity of Darius and the femininity of Nina, and both of those characters spoke to me in such major ways. And so I think it's a coming out as an evolution. And so you just continue to get more and more data about yourself. But I would say like around the age of probably like around 11 or 12, maybe I began to realize that I might have been a little bit different.
okay. Okay. Have you come out to your family? And if so, what age and how did they respond?
Um, I didn't really come out to my family. I just kind of started talking about it after a certain while. I remember having like an interesting conversation with my mother in college, but I, I don't. I think it's unfair for queer people to have to come out because straight people don't have to come out. So why should I?
Mm,
And so I just slowly but surely just began to accept my truth for myself and to move accordingly.
mhm. Okay. And actually, that's a interesting response. I think that saying that you think it's unfair for queer people to have to come out to their families because straight people don't, but it is kind of a coming out, right? Like if I, as a straight person, say my boyfriend, right, then that's kind of me coming out, right? That is me stating what my preference is. So I think that coming out has become synonymous for LGBTQ plus community because it's not society's norm, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think therein lies the issue that is stigmatized. Nobody bats an eye when somebody has a baby and they're like, oh, if you're having a boy, oh, he's gonna be a heartbreaker. Or they're asking little boys, uh-oh, I'm so sorry. Where's my phone? Give me 1 second. Thought I turned that off. Jeez, that's loud. My bad. Um, but I think it is nobody bats an eye when somebody is saying, "Oh, this person, oh, you're gonna have a boyfriend. You're gonna break so many hearts as a little girl."
Mhm.
There is societal norms are nobody bats an eyelash when they're saying, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend yet?" When you're 4 years old, or do you have a girlfriend? But nobody's asking gendered children, "Are you having? Do you have?" Nobody's asking a girl, "Do they have a girlfriend?" You
Hmm.
have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It's
Hmm.
just you have a boyfriend. You
Absolutely.
know. And so therein lies the, like, do straight people come out? I guess, yeah, in a way, but it is because it's societally accepted. There's not pushback because of it. There's no condemnation often attached to it because
Oh
it's
yeah,
quote unquote supposed to be that way.
yeah, because it's expected, right? It's an expectation that when you have a daughter, that she will marry a man, and that you have a son, he will marry a woman. And those are just, that is society norms. And I think that's a good reason for us to be having these conversations, right? Because I think people don't know what they don't know, and so knowledge is key, and learning and understanding is absolutely what we need to make sure we do. So,
Absolutely.
okay. Are you out at work? And if so, what's that experience like?
Yeah, I in our community, we kind of call it gay for pay. Uh, so I am professionally queer. One of my previous roles was the program director for the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland.
Wow.
And so, working under the leadership of the executive director there, Phyllis Harris, um, I watched her walk into rooms with funders of mostly white people, foundations, and introduce herself as a Black lesbian feminist.
Mm,
And that is where I gained the audacity to say, well, why can't I walk into a room and identify as a Black bisexual, nonprofit practitioner, organizational development consultant, all these other things that I have tied to me professionally, but also be able to lead with the fact that I am a sex educator, and have been one for a very long time. I am an executive coach that works with organizations and people on how to come out professionally and how to have their organizations become safer,
awesome.
for more people as well. And so I'm one of the people that's kind of lucked out in the sense that I've been able to kind of leverage um, my identity professionally because um, I've worked in nonprofit for 23 years at this point, and so working in organizations that have been kind of ostracized or seen as subversive in a sense. So places like Planned Parenthood,
Hmm.
places like the Domestic Violence Center, like the LGBT Center. These are places that most people will be like, "Oh my goodness!" So I've always worked in hard spaces, and so being able to show up as your whole self is is really important to the work.
Hmm. Okay. I want to actually jump to a question that wasn't next, but I'm going to ask you this because it sounds like you have an answer for me that I'm really going to be interested in. So, do you think there are enough programs for children and teens to assist them in navigating coming out or identifying or understanding themselves? Do you think there's enough programs for that?
No, I don't think that there is. I think that um, we all have room and space. I think it happens twofold. There's programming that needs to happen, of course, but there's also just being able to create safe spaces in our communities and our families for people to be able to show up as themselves.
Hmm.
Um, for me, that space as a young person was the library. Like I spent a lot of time at the library after school. My first job ended up being at a public library where I just was able to engage in books and thoughts and ideas that I typically would not have had access to. And so I think it's more than just creating programming, but it's also creating space to say, like, I may not understand it, but I want to be able to make room for you to grow into who it is that you want to be. And I want to be able to put you around a diverse group of people so you can continue to see yourself however it is that you need to see yourself.
Okay. And actually, that reminded me that we didn't circle back to how your family responded to you. So I think you said you had a conversation with your mother. How did that go?
Um, like I kind of like half came out to my mom. I didn't like completely come out. I was doing an assignment in school and where so the assignment was like you had to be like truthful, like you had to tell the truth for like a week. And I'm a procrastinator. I didn't do the assignment till the day of. So I'm
So
like
you only had
rushing.
one day of truth.
Yeah, I had like a few hours. So I called my mother and I said, well, I gotta tell the truth. You can ask me whatever questions that you want to ask me. And so she asked me questions about like when's the last time I had sex. She asked me when's the last time I had like unsafe sex. And then she was like, oh, I have one. You know, have you ever been with a woman? I was like, okay. And I was like, yeah. And then she was like, okay, but I know you're not gay. And I left it at that. I didn't use that as an opportunity to come out as bisexual. I just let her
Form her own
form
opinion
her own
of
opinions
that. Yeah.
about it. And I was just like, well, she knows something, so I'll take it, you know. But as I got a little bit older, and also as a non-monogamous person, I just began to kind of show up because it was just easier for me to like I wasn't asking permission and I wasn't asking for forgiveness at a certain point because I just so many people in my life, especially family, are so unapologetically who they are. How could I was raised to be that way. So how could I not be unapologetically myself when I've had all these examples of unapologetic, especially Black women in my family? So I was like, y'all gonna get it because how else did I learn it? I didn't pull it out of anywhere. Like I didn't pull it
Right.
out of thin air, you know?
I like the word that you use too, audacity. I should have the audacity to be myself, right? So I like that. Was it as easy? Was the experience as easy with the rest of the family? Or was it just
Uh,
kind of where the conversation just came up when it was relevant? How did it?
yeah, at a certain point I just started showing up with whoever it was I was dating. It just was what it was. And I think um, you know, what really shaped me was um, having a gay family member who was in an older generation and watching how life had hit him so hard because he wasn't able to live in his truth because of the times he grew up in. And the impact of that, even to this day, that it doesn't haunt me, but it calls for me to want to be out and want to create safe spaces for my younger siblings, my younger cousins, my nibblings, nieces, nephews, so they can not only see the example of it, but know that they are safe to be themselves. And um, so I've become the LGBT big cousin. I've become the LGBT. Um, I field the questions and I create the safe space, but I also just living in my truth, get to empower my siblings and my friends to parent differently, to think about things differently, but also it gives the kids an opportunity to be like, I can see an example of a person. So like today, I gave my sister a book called Not All Boys Are Blue by George M. Washington. And it's a book that's on the book ban list in several states.
Oh wow.
And it's a young adult, it's a YA young adult kind of memoir about his life growing up as their life as a non-binary, being enculturated as a Black boy. Um, and I got a chance to go hear that author talk. And I got a copy of the book for myself, and I got a copy of the book for my sister's oldest child. And I get a text message. I gave the book to my sister, got it signed as well for them. Gave the book to my sister, and I get a text from my nibbling like, "Did I tell you that I wanted this book? I've been wanting this book for a very long time."
That's
You
awesome.
know, and I was like, no, but I just felt like it was something that you should have. You know, I love you. And I sent the picture, like I got to meet the author as well. That's so dope. And thank you so much. And I love you so much. And so it just, little things that say, I see you,
Mhm.
that just goes a very, very long way.
It goes a very long way. And I think one of the things that you said that I thought was powerful is, and I can't remember how you phrased it, but you said something about helping people parent or learn to be a better parent or something to that effect. And I think that is huge, right? Because and especially today, I think although, we're living in a time where I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier than it had been,
Very.
because so many conversations are being held and we see it on TV and different things. So it prompts people to try, at least to have, some people, not all people, right, to have a conversation around it. So I appreciate that comment that you just made. What impact, if any, did this process play on your mental health?
It still plagues on my mental health, especially as a non-binary person, especially now as a pregnant person. I am, one, I never thought that I would parent myself. Like, I've been really good at being a side parent. Like, people have side chicks and side dudes. I'm a side parent. Like, I just love to be the additional help and additional support. And so I never thought that I would parent myself. And so it has me thinking about who is going to be the village for my child, to make sure that if my child does not feel always comfortable or safe, even though they know that they can come to me. Like, I always knew I could come to my mother, but can you really? Like, all the time, you know, no matter how safe they say it is, you don't always feel you don't always feel that safe. And so that's why your aunties and your uncles and your village are so important. And so, I've been just really thinking about, who do I intentionally wrap like, who do I put my child around? What village do I call in to make sure that this child can grow up whole, black, and free? And
Mm.
that's all I want for them. Whatever whole, black, and free looks like for them is what I want. Um,
And
and
most of the
so,
time that comes naturally, I think. I think once your child gets here and the people that you normally surround yourself by, you can tell, right?
yeah,
You can tell who your village should be. I think it comes naturally. I don't think that you'll have to worry about it. But as a parent, that's what we do. Welcome to the
for-
club of worrying forever, right?
forever and ever.
Because that's what parents do. So, okay, but I think you have, I think you have so much knowledge to share and just a different perspective that will make a well-rounded child for you. So I think that you're well on your way to being a great parent already. So,
I appreciate that and receive that. Take that in.
okay, so what do you think is needed to make these conversations easier to discuss in terms of, a child having a safe space to, or a teen or an adult, right? Feeling like it's a conversation that can be had. How do we start to have those?
I think people have to first interrogate their own assumptions around sexuality and sexual orientation, and understand that there are age appropriate ways to engage in these conversations. And sexual orientation is not inherently about sex. We say sexual orientation, so it sounds sexual, but it really boils down to, who do I want to be affectionate towards? And when we're talking about young people, they're talking or they go together. It's not about, oh, I want to have sex with this person. I want to be in community with this person. I want to be near this person. I want to maybe hold this person's hand. And how do we talk about things like consent and safe touch and all these other things that happen within families that cause trauma, that impacts how we act outside of our community as well. So it's not necessarily just about sexual orientation. It's more about, how do we create community, how do we have healthy relationships and friendships, and how do we make sure we're creating a safe space for children to understand consent, good touch, bad touch, and all of these things. Because oftentimes people like to attach sexual orientation to the cause for all of these other issues that are happening, when these other issues were not taken care of, or trauma was not acknowledged, or things of that nature. So you can't just say, oh, this person is gay or this person is bisexual because they had something happen to them as a child. That's not how that's not how this works.
Mhm.
You know, like nobody just um nothing can nothing can make you straight the same way nothing can just make you gay. Like these are things that are a part of who you are. And so being able to interrogate, you know, your own feelings around sexuality and why do you have the feelings that you have? Where does your desirability lie? Even if you've made a choice, have you ever had desires that you just chose not to act on? And just because you haven't acted on those desires doesn't mean that the identity is still not there. It still very much be a part of your story, even if you never act on it. And so just being able to access knowledge incredibly well, being able to have a full story versus a segmented or a fragmented part of a story, and knowing our history. You know, I continue to learn so much. Like I learned just today that there were in Germany in the 1930s, there was clinics and hospitals for people to transition from one gender to another, and there was research and books and all of those things, and it's one of the first things that the Nazis burned was the books
Mm,
that told that story.
wow.
And so this is not new. You know, our sexual orientation is not new. We've always been diverse in our gender identity, in our sexual parts. There are intersex people, and cisgender people, and everything in between. And there are people who span the alphabet mafia from L to LMNOP. so, and so, you know, it's not an affront to straight people that people are finding new ways to identify themselves and to be able to have language. The dictionary adds new words every single day.
Mhm.
And we should be able to add new words as we find out more and more about ourselves. It's not a disservice to straight people. Nobody's coming for straight people. Like you're fine. Nobody's trying to convert. Trust me, we don't need any extra people. We only want the people who want us, okay?
Absolutely. Okay, I only have one question left. So, and this question is, what does pride mean to you? And do you celebrate it? And if so, what do you do to celebrate?
Um, Pride started out as a riot, you know. It started out in New York, um, where police entered a bar to bust up a bar full of trans women, and sex workers and gay people who were enjoying themselves, and the police were upset about it. And a riot, and it was a riot that lasted for days.
Hmm.
After that, you know, it started with a throw of a brick or an object, still kind of up in the air about what that was. But um, you know, pride for me means Marsha P. Johnson, a Black disabled trans woman who was at the forefront of this movement. Um, and so pride for me is the reminder that, while we see rainbows and flags and parades today, that there is bloodshed behind that, and that Black LGBT people, like many movements, are at the foundation of the work that so many people get to benefit from, including straight people today. You know, like all of us benefit from LGBTQ culture, the language, the fashion, the food, the community, you know. And so for me, it's just the consistent reminder that it started off as a protest, not as a party.
Mm, that's awesome. That
Yeah.
that you have been, when I say this interview has been phenomenal for me. And that was actually my last question, but I do want to ask you, Because I mean, you're full of knowledge and you're teaching me a lot today, just in these simple questions that I've asked. And so I want to ask you before we end this interview, if there's anything that I didn't touch on that you may have thought coming into this interview that you wanted to share with me.
No, I don't think there's anything extra. Like I could talk about this all day. Uh, I think um a thought that's been kind of lingering in my mind is that I was talking with somebody on Twitter, and he spoke about how um in the LGBT community we are eldered early. Like I have people who refer to me as an OG, and I'm
Mm,
not even 40.
mhm,
And they ask, and people are always asking, like, and even I ask them, like, hold up, how am I OG already? And I had to remember that um, we've had multiple pandemics wipe out
mm,
so many parts of who we are and so many parts of our culture and our generations. And so things like the AIDS epidemic that took so many queer and gay and bisexual lives in the late 80s, in the early 90s, um, and things like mass incarceration, things like COVID, and all of these other pandemics and these other things that impact LGBT people, specifically Black and disabled LGBT people, much quicker than it impacts so many other folks. Things like suicide, um, and so many other things that make that elder us so much sooner. And so like I would love to have, like, my OG is in her 50s, and it's a blessing that she's still here,
mhm,
but there are so many of us who are missing out on generations of LGBT folks because they are lost to mental health issues, to drug issues, to death, and to so many other things because we have not created safe spaces for black and brown LGBTQ people to thrive.
mhm.
And so I just always want to remind folks that, like, our community is always feeling young because we are literally fighting for survival.
Mhm. Mm. Well put. And that's an angle that I never even considered. Right. It just,
Yeah.
I guess if you're, if you're not in the community, no matter how many people that you know and love, that are, you don't necessarily, you still don't think the same. Right. I mean, and that's normal, right? In terms of, for example, I'm tall, so I don't think like a short person, right? I have a very close short friend, and she'll say, why are you always getting on these bar stools? I
Oh
gotta
yeah, I
climb,
can't, I
you
can't do
know,
it.
and I'm like, because it's just so far from my reality. I can walk up to the stool and just sit on it.
Yeah.
It's not, and so, but and that's why I say that people can only really see their experiences unless they're told or taught or shown from someone else that has a different experience. So
Yeah.
I absolutely appreciate all of the feedback that you've given me today. And I am going to go ahead and already beg for a circle around for another interview if you
I'm
are
down.
available, because this
Yeah.
has been absolutely wonderful. I thank you so much for sharing your input, your experiences, and all of your knowledge today. So thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure.
All right. You have a great day.
You as well. Peace.